Hello and welcome to a pro basketball show with me, Andrew Willett. We're in the midst of WNBA coverage and excited to bring our content to you. You can catch a pro basketball show on streaming services such as YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify with live broadcasts on playback. Make sure to follow us at APBShow on social media platforms such as Twitter and Instagram, with more coming soon. Without further ado, a pro basketball show. Hello and welcome to a pro basketball show. It is time to talk about the Dallas Wings, one of the more intriguing teams, in my opinion, currently positioned in the 5 spot, heading into the playoffs if they were to start. It's an early season though. Off-season podcast, we position them with a lot of questions and concerns. Not the strongest start to the season, but I'm still feeling pretty good about their start. And to talk about some of these questions, as well as Satu Savali, we have brought in none other than Christan B, covering the only W team in Texas for Mavs Moneyball. He also does Bulls content at Madhouse on Madison. Christan, thank you so much for joining the show. How are you doing?
Andrew, thank you for sending out the invite. I appreciate it, man. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Thrilled to have you on here. And you know what? I'm having a lot of fun with the WNBA season underway. Getting a lot of content out and really dissecting a lot of these teams. But before we get into Dallas, I wanted to ask you, what were your expectations heading into this WNBA season?
Heading to this WNBA season for the Dallas Wings, honestly, I thought that they were going to be a lot better than a lot of people expected coming into this season. I know you trade away, franchise cornerstones like Alicia Gray. It's real questionable how you look in the front court when you trade away a piece like Kayla Thornton, who was very kind of like a Swiss knife effect for them last year. Did a lot of things, passed well. She could honestly knock down a 3 or 2 when need be. Losing those players going into this season, I would understand. I would understand why people wouldn't necessarily be as high on the Wings as others are. But also, when you think about what they added, you add Natasha Howard, 3-time WNBA champion, former DPOY recipient. You add vets like Diamond DeShields, who actually hasn't played yet. But still, just because she hasn't played yet, there's still a lot of behind-the-scenes work that players do, not necessarily on the court, but that is still worth being acknowledged. Just Veronica Burton and her emergence, kind of leading the show and directing the ship and everything. And preseason, she made a really good characterization as far as last year. And she didn't think that, her pace and that her patience with the ball in her hands was as good as it could be. And then you think about that coming from, someone that was just a rookie last year. It's like, you give yourself some grace. But you look at her this year, right? You look at her this year, you look at her compared to last year, and there's definitely an improvement there. Tierra McCowan, she had come to this season. There was really big expectation that she got hurt in the first game, and she hasn't played yet. Now she's overseas with Turkey, Eurobasket. But with all the other players on this team that have been, assembled together, because this is a completely new team when you think about it, are honestly right where I thought they would be.
Interesting. Okay, I think that's a very fair place to for Dallas, because when I looked at their offseason, I don't have it all in front of me right now, but to lose the pieces, Maria Mabry, Alicia Gray, Kayla Thornton, those are some big pieces, as well as I think Isabel Harrison. But for what they brought back, you make a great point here. Not only Natasha Howard and Crystal Dangerfield, but the draft compensation as well, and they go and they use a lot of draft picks this year. And so that's where kind of the question marks remain for me heading into the season, with hey, we're going to be relying on it. Oh, and Diamond DeShields as well. That just popped in my head. Diamond DeShields is also over here in Dallas. It just unfortunately has yet to take shape. But with all of the rookies, I thought they have to play really strong roles heading into the season, and I just didn't know how they would be able to do so. Like you said as rookies, we have seen Maddie Siegrist step into a larger role. But where did you feel about kind of the role players on this team and some of that added depth being so young?
Last year the team kind of lacked a veteran presence. And,
Mm,
Enrique was one of the longer tenure players, being there since 2019. And you think about it, that's only 4 years ago. That's not that long ago. So they definitely needed some more voices in the locker room, which is what Crystal Dangerfield brought when they signed her early on. And, that kind of voice, and also like I said, Natasha Howard brought in the offseason. I think those are two voices that were desperately needed for a team that is, has been loaded with talent for years. But
it's true.
kind of molding that talent and getting something out of it has been a struggle. And also, like as far as the Marina Mabry part, that's why I kind of didn't mention as far as the Cornerstones part because there was already kind of some dismay as far as whether the fit was there, as far as her play style, then whether she really wanted to be here long term. And getting 3 first-round draft picks and a couple pick swaps from Chicago. I mean, you can't really be mad at the compensation, right? But then again, you look at the compensation and it's like, okay, well, we know there's some great picks coming up in the future, like a lot of great talent in the college ranks, but we also know that Dallas has a history, a track record of not necessarily drafting the best players available,
Mm,
and also just not necessarily cultivating those players and lasting long term. Like I don't have the stats in front of me, but I believe that Enrique, VB, I think there's only like 3 or 4 players over the last 8 years that have been picked within the top 7 picks, and they've had like 9 or 10 first round picks in that top range. And only like 4 of them have remained with the team.
man.
So I mean that's it's a little wrong right there, but as far as like you get the idea, like it's been a lot.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. Like, I mean, there are and I hate to phrase it this way, but the draft fails that Dallas has had in the past. And I think uh, new head coach as well. I am curious your thoughts on LT head coach Latricia Trammell, because I think with a lot of the talent last year would have fit really well into LT's system this year too. I think like they could have been a little bit better. What do you think about the job LT has done so far in this start?
So through 7 games, the team is 4-3. They lost 2 really close games. One was a 1 point loss, the other was a 6 point loss to the Mystics and the Connecticut Sun, respectfully. And she had a really good point at the Mystics game. We're playing with 9 players, and these are championship contenders. The Sun literally were the runner-up last year. So you look at the game and you want to criticize the wings, but you also have to respect the other team on the other side as well. So it's kind of 50-50 at that point. But LT has been a breath of fresh air here in Dallas as far
Mm.
as players and media. She's just been phenomenal. Every time you talk to a player about her, it's just everyone glows. They're just so happy to go to work every day. Like during preseason, people were talking about LT, and that was really one of the things that a walk would bring up every day. I love coming to practice every day. I love working. This team just feels like a family. And, we weren't hearing these things last year. It was kind of the exact opposite, unfortunately. But now that with LT here, she's been exactly what this team is needed. And,
Mm.
discipline as well on the defensive side. Like Dallas has been a fiery offensive team for years, but they just haven't had a defensive pedigree. And that's exactly what LT brings. Every time someone asks her something like, what do you want more from the team? Or, how do you think you can improve? Defense, closeouts. It's always defense, and that's exactly what she is. She's great.
You know what, Kristen, you mentioned it. Obviously, a defensive head coach, but I do want to get into this offense that we've seen so far.
Yes.
Because they're fourth in offense, which is a pretty solid place to start. Like you said, going up against championship contenders, I feel the same way about Indiana. I think they have had a very tough schedule to start out the season. No wonder they've only got one win. In fact, impressive that they got the win over Atlanta. But the same with Dallas. They have some tough losses to some really good teams. But this offense being fourth, I do have some concerns. I looked here at the numbers, 10th in field goal percentage. It looks like 11th in 3-point percentage, but they are first in field goals and 3-point shots attempted, as well as being second in free throw percentage, and first in offensive rebounding. So Kristen, I guess with this Dallas offense, a lot of it seems to be the amount of shots that they can get up, not as opposed to some actual efficiency so far. What are you seeing from this team offensively?
Offensively, as far as, where they're taking their shots at, where they're getting them the most. LT has preached about this a couple of games in a row that, they're not really taking time to progress the plays, really kind of rushing this a little bit. And you can see that, especially in those last two games before the Phoenix Mercury game. Like, I would say the only really two quarters they won out of those eight was the second half against the Mystics, and those were the first time they had outscored the opponent over, like I said, eight quarters. So that was definitely a building block point for the offense. But overall, as far as 10 makes and being 11th and 12th in those respective categories, while also being top, one or two as far as these temps, it's not good. But also when you look at the through the lens that this team doesn't have that many options on the wing right now. Lopez Seneschal has not played at all. Like I said earlier, Diamond hasn't played. They qualified for the league's hardship provision twice already. We're not even through the first 3 weeks of the season. And Kalani Brown and Odyssey Sims, but literally two of the biggest performances last night were Odyssey Sims. She didn't. I think she only had 3 points. So she scored her first bucket like around the 1 minute 40-minute mark of the fourth quarter. But Kalani Brown with a career night, 17 points, 15 rebounds. Just a monster effort. Like you were saying, offensive rebounds. The team had 15 last night. As far as those 15, Maddie Siegrist, Kalani Brown, and Satu Sabli combined for I think it was 11 of the 15. It was either 10 or 11 of the 15. And Maddie had five. Maddie had five of those. Of those eight rebounds that she had herself, five of them were offensive glass. She shot the field, and this is one of those. The offense is definitely going to need from her. She is a top five overall pick, and LT has made a really good point, knowing that Maddie is the first one in the gym and the last one out, and she needs to take the shots. It's kind of a blessing in disguise. You have to tell the rookie to take the shots and not just calm down a little bit. But yeah, the offense, I'm not really worried at it so far. I would give it about another maybe 10 games, maybe a little bit before All-Star break to really start cracking it.
Hmm.
But so far so good, at least. What they've been operating on their big three of Natasha Howard and Satu Sabali and Erika Gumbawale. And Satu is playing herself out of the MIP conversation, MVP conversation. That's something to talk about.
Yeah, oh my gosh, like so many questions I have based off of that answer alone. But I think just kind of sticking with the offense, they're first in those attempts. I just do you like the pace that they're moving at, and also the shooting being as far down as it is. Do you think that will even out at some point? It's still a very young season, or are you concerned about the lack of shooting so far?
You know, if it wasn't for the circumstances that I know they're facing right now, as far as they drafted mostly shooters because that's what they needed for the team. And with OT, they kind of already had a defensive philosophy built from training camp. But
Mm.
I think that if Maddie can somehow, some way, kind of continue, not just have to drop 15, 20 every game, but a couple threes here and there, just keep the effort up like she did last night. I think those would make a big effort, especially considering they don't have many players right now that can create their own shot right now, and that's definitely what they need.
And when I did that rookies podcast, I talked about Maddie Cedrus, and I felt that it honestly has not lived up to expectations, but definitely not on her
Yeah,
because she's a rookie. Like she's going to have these growing pains. She's being asked to do a lot by Dallas, and I think if she is able to step up into that role, Dallas is going to be a whole lot better because of kind of, as you mentioned, the lack of players in that certain spot. But also, she's doing all the right things out there on the court, like attacking the offensive glass. Didn't some putbacks, staying after it, and I think hustling has been up there, for her. But yeah, I'm a fan there. In terms of pace, do you think it's just gonna be continuous run, run, run? Because they're also 10th in assist percentage. They are taking care of the ball, but not getting a whole lot of assists out there as well as they run.
Yeah, well, I've realized like through the first 7 games, as while their assists may not be where they're like I would like for them to be at, or even like league average, they're getting or they're generating a lot of their offense via the transition game and really just hustle plays. And they are one of the, like you just said, one of the better teams as far as offensive rebounds. And that's where a lot of their second chance points and just second looks at good shots come from. And that's one of the things that LT was preaching on the other day that, 50 to 26 rebound starting Kalani Brown in that one game, that wasn't a coincidence. And that might be
Mhm.
something to look at going forward. It might be too soon, but I would love to see what starting Kalani Brown looks like for the starting lineup.
I agree. I agree. So I mean the offensive glass, the transition points, they are third in each and then first in points off turnovers. So they're doing a lot of that through the fast break, through that extra hustle play. I think the offense is going to have to start picking it up a little bit. My question now, for you, is this peak Arike Ogunbowale?
Um, no, it's not, honestly. I just actually released a article over covering last night's game. And, Enrique is having one of her worst shooting starts to the season since her sophomore year. And the team is winning despite the slumps. And while the points may be nice, shooting 35% from the field this year, shooting 20% on threes. That's not just not going to cut it for the team. But luckily, right now, Satu Sabali is playing out of her mind. The team is playing as a whole instead of just playing for one. And I think that's really carried them to where they are right now, concerning these injuries that they've had start the year. I think it could have been a lot worse. Not gonna lie to you, man, it could have been a lot worse. But I think having an experienced coach in LT, like this may be her first year, head coaching in the W, but she's been a head coach in women's basketball at every level besides two for the last 30 years. So she has that experience. This is just one of those moments that I think has been overdue as far as to show her what she's got. And as far as like pace, the team was second in the league before the Connecticut and Mystics games. So I think those 2 games really kind of knocked it down. I think they will get it back up eventually, but I do think in all honesty that some people do forget that Lou Lopez Seneschal was one of the dynamic scorers in the collegiate ranks last year. Missing another top draft pick like that, but talent uh, definitely hurts. But considering where this team is right now, still in the thick of it, you can't really complain, right?
I agree. I agree. There's a lot of still question marks because of those injuries.
Yeah.
So a lot of that still remains. I do think I would like to see them facilitate a little bit better offense in the half court. I think when you go through a shooting slump like Arike is going through right now, you're going to have to find points in other ways, and that's what they're doing. They're hanging around there. That's really positive to see. But one of the biggest band-aids that you have mentioned is just Satu Savali cures all out there on the court, both on the defensive end, but and on offense. I think has been awesome. One of the concerns I had with this team was kind of the three bid lineup with Satu and Natasha Howard and Tierra McCowan, and obviously McCowan hasn't been there, but they're still sticking with that same system a lot of the time with Kalani Brown stepping in as the bid down low. Did you have any concerns with that lineup in terms of obviously we haven't seen great shooting so far, but uh, how do you feel about that lineup?
Coming to the season, I think everyone, to keep it frank, if you tell me you had no concerns coming to the season with the three big lineup and Satu Sabali starting, I'm gonna call you a liar to your face. I'm sorry. I mean, over the last 3 to 4 seasons, she's only played 44 games, and coming to their fourth year, it's okay to have suspicions as far as whether the health is going to be there. But since the way that she started this season, just on fire. The one thing I admire about her offense to start the season is that she's not hunting shots. She's driving to the rim, she's taking open threes, and she's taking what the defense gives her. And this is what she's getting. And this is what she's giving us. In 7 games, she has 5 double doubles, 4 back to back. And she's one of 3 front court players averaging 3 more assists. One of them being Jessica Shepard up in Minnesota. So that's something I don't think anyone could have saw coming. And a lot of the threes that she's hitting are either, like I said, open or she's trailing. So that does so much of the offense. And she's kind of like a tunnel scorer. Shout out to Hagen Pebley. I got that from her. She was talking to Mark Schindler about the Dallas Wings, and that's kind of where Satu is getting her bread and butter so far this year, right in that tunnel as far as the paint on the
Mm.
floor. So that's really where she's been at, and it's thriving for the Wings. It's generating a lot of good looks for them as far as assist, and just generating good looks. And seriously, don't think that the Wings would be where they are right now. I know it's only 4-3. I know it's not a glorious record, paper wise, but they wouldn't be where they are without his dominance through these first 7 games.
She has been just awesome. Yeah, I mean the article by Mark Schindler outlined just why she's been so good. Definitely go check that out as well. But like I guess I brought this up on my Bally Sports episode with Maggie Hendricks,
Love
who came.
Mag.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
I'm from Chicago. She's from Chicago.
That's awesome. Okay, wasn't didn't know that, but that's awesome. Uh, but I brought it up and was like, is Satu Sabali the best player on the Dallas Wings? And she was like, I don't know about that. Like, let's go with co-best player. And I think just a couple of weeks, and I think almost everybody is willing to say that, like you said, she's could be moving into that MVP conversation for how
Yeah.
well she is playing right now.
You know, I love Satu. I love the way she started this season. Albeit the shooting slumps, I just can't disrespect Enrique Gumawali like that. She has done a lot for this team, and to be honest, a lot more than sometimes a lot of other superstars would, considering the talent that's been around her. They haven't necessarily built a cohesive unit in the time that she's been here. Just kind of on in defense of her, but she is, in my opinion, for this team to go anywhere, Enrique Gumbawali has to be the best player.
Mm.
And you know, she hasn't been through these first couple of games, but it's still early. It's just now turning June. Enrique's got it. She has shown in the past that she shows up when the team needs her the most. And I just in the time that I've spent covering the W, I just haven't seen a player before just drop 20 the way that she does. It's simply electrifying.
So some of the tough shots that she hits are off the charts. I mean, I'm right there with you. I don't want to take anything away from Arite. Just a big Satu fan and have been for a little while over here. So happy to see her breaking out. That was my next question though.
Yeah.
Is this team the is the fit right to build around Arite with the three bid lineup with Veronica Burton as a backcourt mate, with the shooters off the bench who are still going to progress and get better. Do you, and if it's not, what changes would you make?
I think everything changes when you add one of the most elite wing defenders and Diamond Shields into that lineup. Um, it's I've seen personally up front in Chicago in her couple games in Phoenix. She is just a bundle of joy on and off the court. For her to battle through the season the way that she has, at first coaches like Diamond has some decisions to make. Um, I'm not sure what that was about as far as deciding whether surgery was the route to go or
Mm,
not. Obviously, maybe it isn't. Maybe hopefully she comes back sooner rather than later. But when you add her into that lineup, it just changes so many things for this team as far, especially on the defensive side. It takes so much pressure off everybody else to have to worry about who's going to guard the best player on the other side. And for a couple of games, for majority of them, Enrique has been guarding, pretty well. She's been a plus defender to start the season so far, and that's really what's kept them afloat. Just her, fighting over screens, loose balls, just showing up and working on defense. That's kind of been one thing that's kind of been a little lagging in the years past. But LT has said numerous times, you're not going to play, you don't play defense. So everybody is buying in, and the defense is generating the offense. So I think as long as they can keep that up until they can, the Cavalry's on the way, I think they'll be fine for the most part.
and so I guess I want to touch on the defense now. Kind of my actually, let's take a real quick maneuver over to Veronica Burton before we jump anywhere else, because you did mention her at the top of the show. And I'm a big fan of what she brings. I trust her a lot on the court. As of late, at least from watching Dallas, from my perspective, it kind of seems to feel like LT seems to prefer a veteran in Crystal Dangerfield before she went down, or like you said, brought in Odyssey Sims. I believe played nearly 20 minutes in her first game on that hardship deal.
Yeah.
But uh, I don't know. I have a lot of trust in VB. The shot kind of went away in that last game, but what's gone right? What's gone wrong for her, and why is she not getting even more playing time?
I think as far as it's a defensive thing,
Mm,
LT spoke about it a couple games ago. I believe it was the Minnesota game. I may be wrong, but I think that was one of the first games where she went with a three guard lineup as heavy as she did.
yes.
The main reasons why she said was because of defense and that she needed an extra guard to get in there and get the work. So it wasn't really as far as VB and like on the offense, it was like ball handling, getting the offense up and everything. There hasn't been that big of an issue. It's really just been as far as defense and just getting everybody along as far as one accord. Crystal's been doing great when she was playing before she got in the walking boot. I do think that with Crystal being gone, Odyssey had 6 assists last night. I doubt she do many of the plays, if any of them. Considering she just signed with the team yesterday morning. So I think, Dallas is getting a lot of contributions from everywhere. Signing them on the team already. But as far as VB, I think that she is going to thrive. It's a little bit more responsibility now that Crystal isn't there. But I'm interested to see whether Coach goes with Odyssey to start lineup against Phoenix tomorrow. I don't know. She went with Kalani starting, which was a great decision, obviously,
Mm,
because
yeah.
I love Natasha, but it's only so much you can do as a 6'2", forward against 6'9" Brittany Griner. It's hard for anybody in W. It's not even anything against her, but Kalani is 6'7", so those extra inches help a lot. But I'm interested to see what goes to starting lineup tomorrow. It's going to be a key to tell you how to move forward.
So that was a big a thing for me with the bids having three bids in the starting lineup that I was concerned about, and that's Natasha Howard and Satu Sabali. Neither really big enough to play full-time center down there. Obviously, we can see at times one or both of them in there taking up that bid spot. But defensively, uh, you kind of see Tierra McCowan in the drop. You can get very versatile with both Natasha Howard and Satu Sabali. How do you want this team to match up in kind of like in general, but then also in the most important moments, like closing a game?
Yeah, so closing the game, I'll start with that first. As she is as far as LT. That's kind of one with a fluid, real kind of closing lineup. It hasn't been real set in stone, obviously because of all the injuries.
I saw Maddie Seidrist playing a lot in the closing lineup.
Maddie plays so much of the fourth. Um, he played
Awesome.
the they did like Kalani played I think 6 minutes out of the fourth last night with 5 fouls and still grabbed 6 rebounds. So I think that might be the key going forward. Maddie needs shots, and there was I think that first game that she scored her first points was off of an elevator screen, and LT said she drew that up for her just for her. And if I could see that just a little bit more, getting Maddie in her spots, like I said earlier, she was one of the most dynamic scorers in the I'm sorry, sorry, and NCAA last season. So, I'd love to see her get some more opportunities on offense.
That's very fair. I guess on the defensive end, I am a little bit more so happy to run Natasha Howard and Satu Sabali out there at the same time. I'm excited for when a Diamond Shields can enter that lineup with Arike and plus one other win guard type. But yeah, you're gonna have to see a lot of Tierra McCowan. Kalani Brown, you mentioned playing awesome. Should get a lot of time as well for this team. Just, I mean, not a whole lot of spots for this roster. So, I mean, there are still a lot of questions that remain. They seem to be making do for the most part. Do you have any other Dallas Wings thoughts as we kind of hit this point in the season. It's still a very young season with a lot of injuries.
Yeah, the season's still really young, and Enrique made a really great point last night in the presser after the game. She said she's really glad that this is all happening as far as the injuries and the players being out of the lineup. Tierra being overseas right now with Eurobasket. She's happy that all this is happening right now instead of later in the season after the All-Star break. When games start meaning just a
Great point.
little bit more, right? So, I'm glad this is happening in the first month of the season rather than August going into September. But yeah, the Dallas Wings, we haven't seen them at their full strength. And if what we've seen right now, is one of the stats may not show it, but I think this team is just as good on offense as they are defense. And they're real 50-50 right now. A lot of teams right now, either one or the other to start the season. So them being as fluid on both sides of the ball, once they get their healthy players back, it's going to be a really good season for them.
Very interested to see how they sort of solve those things out. It's going to be fun to watch them do that. As hope to God that they did some injury luck, did some health on the way out. But I guess lastly here from me, where can you see this Dallas team finishing up at full strength, and how much of a contender are they?
I truly think there's only two teams right now that I know. Like I know it's early. I know Washington can pick it up. Brittany Sykes was probably the best signing in free agency in the last all season. But from what I've seen, it's only really between two teams for the championship, Connecticut and Las Vegas. So, I think it might be a rematch. Honestly, it might be a rematch. I don't think anyone really expected Stephanie White to start off the way that she did this season. But when you look at who she's been under for so long, with Kurt Thompson, I don't know, man. It's really just going to be Connecticut and Vegas. But as far as Dallas, I think Dallas could be right there as well. We haven't seen them fully healthy. We've seen how they've played. They've been in every game. There hasn't been one game they've been completely blown out that they just possibly couldn't have won. So I think that's one of the positives going forward. But yeah, the Dallas, they're going to be right there as far as contending for deep playoff run.
Excited to see it. Someone's pretty low on New York over there. But no, excited to see where Dallas ends up. We'll have to touch on that at some other point. But Christan, thank you so much for joining the show. Christan B on a pro basketball show, and we're all excited to see where Dallas goes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Andrew. Talk to you soon, man.
Thank you so much for tuning into a pro basketball show. You can catch a pro basketball show on streaming services such as YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify with live broadcasts on playback. Make sure to follow us at APBShow on social media platforms such as Twitter and Instagram, with more coming soon. Until next time, I am Andrew Willett. Thank you for tuning in.